Welcome to Community Church of Chesterland. Wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome and wanted here.
This is written by James Baldwin, one of my favorite writers, and it's called For Nothing is Fixed. For nothing is fixed. Forever, forever, forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open yourself to the song. Open yourself to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
This book is called Don't Kill the Bugs. Little Boo went to the park one day, hoping to meet new friends on the way. Now, it's important to note that Little Boo is wearing a part of a ladybug costume and some wings. So Boo is into bugs. Boo sets off to the park. There, Boo saw a boy who began to shout, waving his hands and running about. Boo said to the boy, whose name was Lou, "Why are you scared? What happened to you?" "There's a bee who is following me," Lou said. "It's buzzing and whizzing close to my head. It's scary and loud. I'll kill it, I will." "Oh, please don't," said Boo. "Be kind, don't kill. That harmless bee is scared just like you. That tiny thing has feelings too." "You, my new friend, are so strong and tall. That bee is so little, fuzzy, and small. For a moment, just sit perfectly still. Take a few breaths and fly off at will." So Lou and Boo are zenning out together while the bee does whatever the bee wants to do. Delighted, Lou said, "Hey, you were right. There's no need to put up a fight. You do seem really gentle and kind. Can I walk with you and see what we find?" As the two walked, they saw a girl named Joy poking a spider like it was a toy. Cupping the creature tight in her hand, she nudged it to walk, to sit, and to stand. When the crawly spider tickled Joy so, she got fed up and said, "Time to go. You're boring me, doing nothing all day. You're too small and don't even know how to play. Now go away or I'll squash you, I will." "Please don't," said Lou. "Be kind, don't kill. That spider wants to be free like you. That wee thing has feelings too. Living beings are simply not toys. They don't want to play with girls and boys." "Please," Boo said, "just leave the spider be. If you're feeling bored, take it from me. We can have fun together today, leaving the bugs free to go on their way." Strolling along the bright blue sky, the three met Cat, who came running by. Joy saw a ladybug right in her way, so she yelled out, "Hey, watch where you play." Cat then stopped in her tracks to meet a spotted red insect right by her feet. And ladybugs are good luck in Japan. You never kill a ladybug. And of course, spiders are the spirits of your grandmothers, according to a lot of Native American tradition. Just had to stick that in the middle of the story. Hello, my ladybug friend, said Cat. I almost crushed you. Sorry for that. Next time, I'll be more careful. I will. I want to be kind and don't want to kill. The four friends then found a spot by the lake where they sat down to take a short break. Cat suddenly said, "Look in the water, Boo. There's a struggling beetle. What should we do?" Boo said with a worried frown, "We should save it, or else it will drown." The kids got a branch just right for the chore and helped the beetle safely to shore. They put the beetle in the sun to dry, and when it felt better, it started to fly. Easy for me to say. "Well done," said Boo. "With your help and love, that bug is still alive high up above. Being kind and not killing is good, it's true. But saving lives is what real heroes do." The friends, no longer bored, careless, or scared, felt thankful for what they had shared. They held hands and promised, once and for all, to save all creatures, whether big or small, to always be kind, never to kill, since all beings need love, and love them they will. The end. And now it's time for our social justice moment.
I'm honored to have the opportunity this morning to talk with you about sanctuary churches for our social justice moment. Sanctuary churches are not something new to me or probably to any of you folks who have been here for several years. Through talking with Jenny Wilson, I learned that this congregation worked with a family who immigrated here from Vietnam for many years. You provided essential items for this family and assisted as much as you were able to do. Your relationship ended when the family were able to choose to move on and ahead with their lives with independence. Had it not been for this congregation and that 7-year relationship, I imagine the family's life would have been turned out much differently. Our country's leadership continues to toughen immigration laws, deportation efforts, and strengthening border security. Deportation has not decreased nor gone away with any of our top leadership, regardless of the party. Thus, it is time to revisit the sanctuary movement. I would like to open the conversation about supporting a sanctuary church. We cannot be a sanctuary church here as we lack the costly infrastructure such as operating kitchen, shower, laundry facilities, etc., that are necessary for housing a member. Since it takes a great deal of work to sustain a person living in a building, many hands and financial contributions are needed. We could easily partner with other liberal churches in the area to advance the ministry of sanctuary churches. Our church in Cheyenne, Wyoming, is a sanctuary church. The congregation voted then to become one in 2017 after a tremendous amount of study, small group discussions, offers of support from a Presbyterian congregation in town, and leadership from the UUA, ACLU, and our own lawyers. The gentleman our church housed, yes, we had the infrastructure thanks to previous tenants of our beautiful building, that was the Latter-day Saints, he was able to resolve his case in 2018. He currently lives in Colorado with his family and returns to visit periodically. People grow to love one another under all kinds of circumstances. It was not easy, and the process took its toll on at least one of the members and our freshly ordained minister. She remained on, but not without some pushback. Just another bump in the road of an active social justice ministry of a small church with limited resources. Congregations survive and come back, maybe not in the same way. I would be more than happy to discuss details of the movement, both from a first-hand person in the process and how the movement has changed since 2017.
If you would like to contribute a financial show of support for the work and life of this church, you can scan the QR code. You can go to chesterlanducc.org and click on donate, or you can do what I do, still the old-fashioned way, and send a check to 11984 Caves Road, Chesterland 44026. Know that no matter how you choose to share your gifts with this beloved community, they are most gratefully received.
Praise to the source of all we peace and love that freely flow, through the wisdom deep and wise, whose truth and justice open eyes. Amen.
The ancient scripture this morning is attributed to St. Francis of Assisi. Let us bring love. Where hate rules, let us bring love. Where sorrow, joy. Let us strive more to comfort others than to be comforted, to understand others than to be understood, to love others more than to be loved. For it is in giving that we receive, and in pardoning that we are pardoned. The next reading is written by Nelson Mandela, Let Freedom Reign. We understand it still that there is no easy road to freedom. We know it well that none of us acting alone can ever achieve success. We must therefore act together as a united people for national reconciliation, for nation building, for the birth of a new world. Let there be justice for all. Let there be peace for all. Let there be work, bread, water, and salt for all. Let each know that for each the body, the mind, and the soul have been freed to fulfill themselves. Let freedom ring.
We have talked a little bit before about synergy and how things come together. Sometimes we have been studying loving kindness last week. We're going to talk a little bit about it today. And then when I'm back on the 26th, we'll end our Buddhism series and talk about radical compassion and how that looks for social justice. So you heard about the self-care that's coming up on the 21st. That is exactly the kind of stuff we were talking about last week, which is amazing. And this incredible healing service that Luann and John have been working on and are offering on the 6th, nothing more important in the world. It's really, really great that this is all coming together. And I think I think I've told you guys before, with my library job, one of my Sunday morning jobs is to pop out of bed, make sure what the Cleveland Plain Dealer books are, make sure the library's got them, so when the customers read their paper, they can put their holds on them. And so in the Plain Dealer this morning, lo and behold, there's an article on kindness. And yeah, I know, right? I love it when the Plain Dealer people and I are on the same wavelength. This has happened before. But I think it's because there's a sense, right, of these things coming together, of these forces in the world that maybe don't have the best intention toward their fellow folks, and that the rest of us who do are going to really need that strength through the journey. And I love it when I see it somewhere like the public press like that. And one of the things that they talk about, they call it kindness. What can you do to spread more kindness in the world? And one of the things they talk about is self-care, that you've got to do it here first before it goes outward. So anyway, just great synergy once again. I chose Nelson Mandela's words for our morning reading today because part of it sounds so very Buddhist. There's a Buddhist meditation for loving kindness called a metta meditation, and it says, I wish loving kindness for myself, I wish loving kindness for you, I wish loving kindness for the rest of the world. And Mandela's words are, let there be justice for all, let there be peace for all, let there be work, bread, water, and salt for all. Mandela doesn't say, let there be justice for my supporters, or let there be peace for the black people of South Africa. He extended the blessing for all. There was something about it, too, that reminded me of Jimmy Carter's work. Jimmy Carter was a man of vision who saw everyone. Carter would not have said that he had a Buddhist practice of loving kindness. He had a Baptist practice of loving kindness. But the outcome was much the same, right? Carter, like Mandela, saw everyone. And that was one of the reasons Carter made progress in the Middle East before anybody, years and years people had tried this. He was the one who was finally able to make some progress. The ability to see everyone, to have an open heart toward everyone is our topic for today. The Buddhists call this practice loving kindness. Damien Cowan is the author of a book called Buddhist Ethics, a very short introduction. In it, he explains that there are 4 divine abidings in Buddhism. Cowan defines divine abidings as states of mind that are cultivated through meditation. But to be clear, then we're supposed to practice them as we walk through the world. So for instance, in order to be a peacemaker, we have to develop a peaceful heart. Jimmy Carter and Nelson Mandela had peaceful hearts, not passive hearts, but peaceful hearts. There's a difference. That internal work turned outward is what a divine abiding is in Buddhism. The 4 states are loving kindness, compassion, which we'll talk about on the 26th, empathetic joy, and equanimity. Last week we talked about loving kindness and a radical acceptance toward ourselves. Buddhists believe that we are all worthy of treating ourselves with loving kindness, and I've heard many wise social justice mentors talk about the importance of giving yourself whatever it is you're trying to give others. Buddhist wisdom tells us that before you can extend loving kindness to others, you need to be in that continual practice of renewal and extending that to yourself. And I split our talks about loving kindness in 2 parts very deliberately, because I think it's hard for us in our culture that demands hard work and productivity. My boss, we have a director who's retiring. She's a wonderful lady. She's retiring soon, and we're going to have a new director. So she's understandably trying to make everything right for the next director of the library. And my boss, Daniel, said, I feel like it's, oh my God, what have you done for me in the last 5 minutes? It's kind of that pace right now, right? I mean, that's normal. That's pretty, I was in the private sector. That's very normal. We're not less used to that at the library, but there's there's a certain assumed stoicism, I think, in the United States, especially if you're an adult. You're not supposed to need help. You're not supposed to ask for help. You're supposed to just somehow suck it up and keep going. There's not a lot of cultural support or teaching around accepting ourselves or being kind to ourselves when we aren't perfect. But it's so healthy and so necessary, particularly as strength for the journey. I came across this quote by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross that I wanted to share with you this morning. If that name is familiar, she's the woman who she developed the stages of grief many years ago. This quote doesn't have anything to do with grief, but it's a great quote to remember if you find yourself feeling guilty about taking time for yourself or having loving kindness towards yourself. She wrote, "The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, an understanding of life that fills them with compassion and deep, loving concern." Looking at Reverend Donna. "Beautiful people do not just happen." End quote. So this week we're talking about loving kindness toward other beings, like the kids and the bugs. It's not enough, right, to just have loving kindness toward ourselves, although that's where it starts. We must then turn that loving kindness outward. We must hold that same wish for wholeness and wellness and happiness toward others, which is what we heard in that quote from Mandela this morning. But of course, having loving kindness towards others is a whole lot harder than it sounds. Loving kindness is really easy to extend to the people that we love and the people that we like, and really even sort of people we don't know, right? We could extend loving kindness to the folks in Los Angeles right now who are going through a horrible time. That's easier to do. It's a great deal more difficult to extend loving kindness to people who themselves are not extending loving kindness. I am struggling with extending loving kindness towards 2 state legislators who sponsored Ohio's new Parents' Rights Bill. This bill will, among other things, make the lives of our LGBTQIA+ youth miserable, and at worst, endanger their well-being and their lives. I am all about people being entitled to their own beliefs and living their values, but when the imposition of those beliefs harms other people, I stop being okay with that. And it is like pushing a boulder uphill for me to practice loving kindness toward people who are supposed to represent all of us who inflict harm like this. So that is where my loving kindness practice has sort of ground to a halt this week. Before we go any further, I do have an important disclaimer to talk about this morning. We are not talking about, when we talk about loving kindness towards others, we are not talking about like instant forgiveness. Like this person did a terrible thing, but we have to extend loving kindness toward them. That's not what we're talking about here. Bonhoeffer would call that cheap grace. Buddhists have done a lot of interesting and important work around forgiveness, but that is outside the scope of what we're talking about this morning. If someone has suffered harm or abuse, that's a whole more complex situation, and it can be very harmful and just plain wrong to suggest to that person or group of people that we should extend loving kindness after what they have gone through. We need to know the whole story, the whole picture, and we need to leave that work to them. Tara Brach, the Buddhist writer and therapist we talked about last week, says in a situation where harm has been done, we need to acknowledge the real emotions of rage and anger and all the other emotions that arise. And again, that's up to that person's work. It's something we don't suggest or impose. It's a longer and more complex journey, and one that, if we decide to pursue it, should be undertaken with lots of support and the utmost care. It may be worth pursuing, but it is complex. Instead, this morning, we're focusing on loving kindness toward people who evoke more everyday kind of reactions from us. Maybe there's a colleague at work who's really hard to work with for whatever reason. How do we do that? How do we practice loving kindness towards our really awful in-law? Not that we ever have any in this group, right? Or our nasty neighbor. It's like those people you're kind of stuck with in your life for whatever reason, right? There's just no getting around it. It is what it is. So it benefits you more as much as that person to kind of try and work your way through that. How do I work on loving kindness toward the two legislators, DJ Swearingen and Sarah Carruthers, the two people who thought the Parents' Right Bill was the right thing to sponsor when their actions will harm so many? How do we do that? As before, Tara Brach has concrete and practical ways to do this. I'm going to do something a little different this morning, and I hope you don't mind. I'd like to end this talk with a practice of loving kindness from Tara Brach's book, Radical Compassion. We talked about radical acceptance, her first book last week. This is her second one. In this guided meditation, Tara Brach asks us to seek the goodness in other people. She begins by asking us to picture someone with whom we have a loving, uncomplicated relationship. Now, I don't know what this says about me, but as soon as I read that, I immediately pictured all the people I have a loving, extremely complicated relationship with. So I wanted to I'm not joking, I wanted to give you advance notice of that, because when I read it in the meditation, I'm like, okay, wait, I gotta, you know what I mean? I couldn't go further until I get that all figured out. Fortunately, I am blessed to have a loving, uncomplicated relationship with both my dad and my son and so forth. But seriously, if you have trouble thinking of someone, many of the things that are like this that I've listened to also say, picture a former or current pet that's very cherished in your life. Now, there is an uncomplicated, loving relationship, and it's perfectly okay to do that. So, heads up on that. Then Brach moves us to seeking goodness in ourselves, and then in a neutral person, which is interesting, and finally, someone we don't like. Not someone we're afraid of or have been really harmed or hurt by, but someone who we just plain don't like, whether we want to admit it or not. I invite you to seek the goodness through this practice, and I think it will help make this practice of loving kindness more tangible for us this morning. Now, if we were really doing this at something like this program you have coming up on the 21st, this would go much longer because I would stop and let you sort of get the mental images going and so forth. They would run about 15 minutes probably instead of 5 or 6, which is what it's going to run for us. But I'm hopeful it's easy, and I'm hopeful that once you kind of get the idea, if you're interested, you could do this yourself. So here we go. The Buddhist metta, loving kindness meditation, awakens our capacity for unconditional friendliness and love. Our hearts open as we bring our attention to the innate goodness within ourselves and all beings. That's her little preface for it. So, everybody get comfortable. Relax as much as you can. Drop your shoulders. Take a nice deep breath. Bring a slight smile to your lips, and then feel the smile on the inside of your mouth. Smile into your heart, and then imagine the smile expanding, creating a receptive, tender space through the whole heart and chest area. Now bring into your heart someone you love, ideally a relationship that is not complicated. Take some moments to reflect on the qualities in this person you must most appreciate. Recall their intelligence, humor, kindness, vitality. Picture this person when they are feeling love for you. Be aware of their essence as good and wakeful and caring. Mentally whisper their name and the words, "Thank you." Next, bring your attention to your own being and to the care in your heart. Take some moments to reflect on your own goodness, this caring for another and any other qualities that come to mind. Sense your deep aspiration toward loving well, toward truth, toward living fully, and the goodness of your heart's intention. Now, widen your circle of caring by bringing to mind a neutral person. This might be someone you see regularly, but don't know well or feel strongly about. Take some moments to recall how this person looks, moves, and speaks. Now try to imagine them gazing at a beloved child, or struck by the beauty of a fresh snowfall, or laughing, relaxed, and at ease. Remind yourself that they want to be happy and don't want to suffer. Then, as this person comes alive for you, imagine offering them a gesture of care and your prayer for their well-being. Now bring to mind someone with whom you have a difficult relationship, perhaps someone who evokes annoyance, anger, or hurt. First, take a moment to bring a kind, non-judging attention to your own feelings as you reflect on them. Then, turning back to this difficult person, try to see past the surface. Look to see some aspect of their basic goodness. It may help to imagine this person as a young child, sleeping peacefully. Can you recall something about them that you admire, some quality of dedication, caring, or creativity? Even if it's difficult to recognize this person's goodness, remind yourself that all humans want to be happy, want to avoid suffering. Remember that life matters to this person just as it does to you. Holding them in a gentle attention, imagine offering them a gesture of care and or your prayer. Next, imagine that you are bringing together all those you have just prayed for: a dear person, yourself, a neutral one, a difficult one. Holding yourself and others in your heart, sense your shared humanity, your vulnerability and basic goodness. Send prayers of care to all at once, recognizing that you are in this together. Finally, allow your awareness to open out in all directions, in front of you, to either side, behind you, below you, and above you. In this vast space, sense that your loving presence is holding all beings, the wild creatures that fly and swim and run across fields, the dogs and cats that live in our homes, the life forms that are threatened with extinction, the trees and grasses and flowers, children everywhere, humans living in great poverty and those with great riches, those at war and those at peace, those who are dying and those who are newly born. Imagine that you can hold the earth, our mother, in your lap and include all life everywhere in your boundless heart. Aware of the goodness inherent in all living beings, again, offer your prayers. And so ends our loving kindness meditation. Blessed be Community Church, and amen.
many gifts, one Spirit, one love known in many ways. In our differences, cursing from diversity, we praise. One giver, one word, one Spirit, one God, known in many ways, hallowing our days for the giver of the gifts. Praise, praise, praise. God of many colors, God of many signs, we have made us different, blessing many kinds. As the old ways disappear, let your love cast out our fear. Many gifts, one Spirit, none love known in many ways. In our differences, blessing from diversity, we praise. One giver, one word, one Spirit, one God, known in many ways, hallowing our days for the giver, for the gifts. Praise, praise, praise. Freshness of the morning, newness of each night. New hearts still creating endless love and light. This we see as shadow parts, many gifts from one great heart. Many gifts, one Spirit, one love known in many ways. In our differences, blessing from diversity, we praise. One giver, one word, one Spirit, one God, known in many ways, hallowing our days for the giver, for the gifts. Praise, praise, praise.
Our benediction is by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists we will be. Will we be extremists for hate or for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice or for the extension of justice? Blessed be, and go in peace.